Welcome back and welcome to our book club, The Social Chapter. Today we're discussing a hot new read. It is called Luster and it is by Raven Leilani. Jess, why don't you give us a short synopsis?
So Edie is a young Black woman stumbling through her 20s in a low-paying job, living in grimy New York City. She's an amateur artist who makes some questionable sexual choices, and she eventually strikes up a relationship with an older white man named Eric. Now, Eric is in an open relationship, which Edie knows about, but then Edie loses her job and is broke and moves in with Eric and his wife and their young Black adopted daughter. In fact, Edie is the only Black woman that their daughter may actually know.
Okay, so this book is juicy, and so we thought we needed to pair this up. It would be perfect for a wine pairing. So this go around, we selected the Enniskillen Riesling Pinot Grigio. This is a dry white. You can smell it, and it's a light, medium-bodied wine. It's got crisp, clean citrus fruit. There's also nut flavors that you can smell in here. And did you know that Enniskillen is Canada's original estate winery? So if you want to shop local and drink great Canadian wine, Enniskillen is a great, great option. Smells amazing.
I would like to cheers to that, ladies. That sounds delightful.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Because this book, I don't know if you guys saw it, but in every sort of roundup of summer reading, this book made the list and it was highly praised. But I want to know what you think. So this is the time where we give our ratings out of 5 and spend 20 seconds defending that rating. Cynthia, I'd like you to go first.
Oh, okay, Jess, I will. I gave this book a 6 out of 5, and here's why. Because I think we need more from this refreshing young writer. She is just, I think, around 30 years old. This is amazing. I have to tell you, at this point during the pandemic, I was no longer interested in beach reads. I wanted something with teeth, something with bite. This book delivers. It's a challenging story about the intersection of Blackness, sexuality, and power. It's also about complicated relationships. It's raw, it's darkly funny and uncomfortable. Not a perfect book, but a very important one. So there.
So Cynthia, I love that 6 out of 5. I mean, that is, I think, the first time we've seen that. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5. It would have been 5, but I'm just a really jealous, petty person. So I took 0.5 off because I'm so envious of Raven's talent. This book is extraordinary, all of the things that Cynthia said, but also her powers of observation. The way she describes people, they are so real and they're so cutting. She's relentless and unflinching in how she cuts people down and so funny. This book is hilarious. And I just can't get enough of who this writer is, and I'm so jealous of her. So Raven, cheers to you.
There it is. All right, I'm going to buck the trend. Here we go. I need to take a sip for this. I gave this book a 3.5. Cleo agrees. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. And here's why. We know this on television, in literature, we don't see enough Black love. We don't see enough Black families. We don't see enough Black fathers. And we definitely don't see messy Black women. They're just not allowed to be. Black woman has to do double the work for half the recognition. And that is in this book. However, I just never connected to the story. Never did.
Okay, fair enough, Mel. I'm up next. And I gave this book a 4 out of 5, and here's why. Because it felt like being led through a messy but like mesmerizing dream populated with complex and really flawed characters. Everyone's just trying to figure stuff out, often without a lot of grace. But I kind of loved that. And the writing, Lainey, come on. There were sentences I read over and over again just for the pleasure of it because they had a pulse. Reading this was like just watching breathing.
Oh, I totally agree. The writing was just, it was so sharp. But let's talk about the story now. Eric and Rebecca have an open relationship. And then after Edie loses her job, she ends up moving in with them. And then what happens is that Edie and Rebecca have this complicated dance around each other. It's fascinating. So what did you make of this idea of open relationships?
I guess I realized that I'm not capable of having one.
Necessarily. I don't think that I don't think this is necessarily like, like what an open relationship has to look like. This is, to me, was a story about two very unhappy people in a very unhappy marriage who thought that it might be a good idea to incorporate someone else in order to make it better. I think that's a recipe for disaster no matter what. But I was less interested, oddly, to do with the dynamics of that relationship than I was with Edie and her relationship with that family. To me, it was about so much more than the sex. The sex was a part of it, but it was just really about those deep interpersonal dynamics that are so complicated and layered.
I totally agree, Cynthia. And then what Lainey said in your review about how good she is at sort of getting into the minutia of characters. And she does it so quickly and sometimes with such great humor that you almost miss it. Like you really had to pay attention to read this book in order to catch all of those incredible details.
I was playing armchair psychologist. I kept just trying to figure out, like, that's such a foreign concept to me. And I spoke to my husband about, oh my gosh, in this novel, there's an open relationship. And he's like staunchly against it. So obviously it's a little harder to get in when you kind of feel your value system is already opposed to that kind of, lifestyle. And no judgment, but it was hard for me to say, why is Eric doing what he's doing? There are scenes in that book and I just don't get it. I didn't get it. And so there was a lot of stuff that I was like, oh, this is juicy. This is good. And then there's other parts where I'm like, what? Somebody explain this to me. Somebody much smarter than me. Help me.
Well, what I really liked about this version of an open relationship is that typically, the trope is that the two women are fighting over the dude or he is centered in it. But there are large sections of the book where Eric completely disappears. And what is centered is this dynamic between Rebecca and Edie. And that is what, to me, became the fulcrum of this story. These women are so different. Their backgrounds are so different. And the fact of the matter is that they were kind of more obsessed with each other than they were with Eric. I mean, he was incidental almost. And these two women, it became about this, I said dance earlier, but it became about this push and pull. The eroticism to me in this book really came from these two women. And that's what I found so refreshing because oftentimes as women, we are more fascinating to each other than men. No offense, men.
Okay. Listen, we're going to now play casting director. Let's put our casting hat on. If this were to be made into a film, let us cast both Edie. She is the 20-something artist who lives in New York. She's also an editorial assistant. And then you have Eric. So he's the husband in this case, and he's a 40-something husband, father. They lives in New Jersey. Let's cast these two characters first. Jess.
For Edie, I went with Michaela Cole just because I finished watching I May Destroy You, the HBO series that she created and stars in. So I'm kind of obsessed with her. She was on the top of my head. And while I read the book, I actually pictured Josh Lucas as Eddie. I think it might have something to do with that he can be
as
good
Eric.
and bad in one turn.
For Eric.
Like Eric? Yeah. Oh, yeah. What did I say?
Yeah.
Eddie.
You said Eddie.
Yeah, thanks, guys. For Eric, obviously.
So for me, I chose for Edie, I chose Yara Shahidi from Blackish, just because she's in her 20s, maybe only 20 now. And then for Eric, I chose Leonardo DiCaprio because he's supposed to be in his 40s and he's supposed to be. I pictured kind of schmarmy, and I think Leo could pull that off.
I think we're all along the same lines. For Edie, for me, I thought right away of Keke Palmer. I loved her in Hustlers, and I was like, yeah, she's going to capture Edie's spirit just fine. And also because of his tour, like this tour de force in the morning show as a schwarmy guy, Steve Carell. I'm like, that's my Eric.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. For my Edie, it's Kiki Lane. She's such a great actress. And then, I mean, for me, Eric was a total nothing burger. And so Matt Damon is really good at being nothing burger.
How dare you?
As I said, Rebecca is to me a critical character. I don't think we can play casting call without talking about talking about her. So for me, Rebecca, I'm going to go with Rosamund Pike.
I accept that. That's excellent.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, it is very, very good.
Girl.
But now it's time to reveal our next social chapter selection. And we are going with The Meaning of Mariah Carey, written by, of course, Mariah Carey. She's saying she does not hold back in this new memoir. She's even predicting it will upset some people.
Yes,
Can't wait to read this.
I cannot wait for this. I cannot wait. I hope that every single one of you joins along in that one as well. So please remember, pick up the book and then use the hashtag #TheSocialChapter as you're going along, and then join us in the next edition of The Social Chapter as we break down Mariah Mimi's, all of her truths. I can't wait for this, guys. Cheers to another edition of The Social Chapter. Thank you, Jess Allen and ladies. We'll be right back after this.